How you doing, Spencer?
I'm good, man. Good morning. It's good to be here. It's a beautiful day today. We're excited to be out here. David decided to wear shorts today. You know what? Hey, listen, he can deal with the cold a lot better than I can. I got gloves. People keep asking me about my gloves. I mean, it's cold. I don't know what to tell.
So I'm on my morning hike, man. I figured break a little sweat. I'm in shorts, and yeah, got my surplus funds old sweatshirt on, and
show him the back. Show him the back. Look at that. Revolt to the hashtag surplus warriors.
It's the new season drop.
This is the old season drop.
That's the new season.
This is the new season right here.
New collection.
New collection, surplus fund.
Which I have this one too. I wanted to kind of keep it nice, so I wore my old sweatshirt.
I appreciate that.
Figured that. So as much as I do. So yeah. Looking forward to hiking. So.
What time is it right now? About 5, 6 o'clock?
Yeah, it's probably about 6 o'clock, 50 degrees outside, and we're in good old Irvine, California. You can see the
city
behind us, and it's an awesome view.
Cool.
And we are hiking up the trail.
Cool.
So where are we going, David? Lead us.
All right, I'll lead us. So Spencer, what would you do if we were hiking on this trail and you came across a wallet with $200,000 in it?
I came across a wallet with $200,000 in it?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I will admit it depends on how the money was denominated. So if there was like 100, or 200 $1,000 bills, it might be different. It's a pretty small wallet. But if there was, 200,000 $1 bills, it might be a different story. So, but if I found a wallet with $200,000 in it, I would probably try to skip trace the owner using the license or the driver's license, and get in touch with them. What originally got you into surplus funds?
So it's interesting, and I know a lot of people have heard this story on your webinar. I had a property in Paramount, California that was condo, and the mother was deceased, and her son was getting all the paperwork together. What's sad is he had everything ready together, and then he dropped it. Like he just totally dropped the entire ball here. So the property went up for auction, and he had it went for over the asking amount, and he had funds that were due back to the family. And I had never seen this before. Like I had never seen a property, like I didn't know. Never thought about it. So you have your Bank of America, and I honestly forget what the numbers was. This is back in I think it was 2014, but you get like something like Bank of America, and they take a property 123 Main Street up for auction, and they're asking 200, and the property sells for 350. I always thought that extra 150 went back to the bank, but it goes back to whoever was on title at the closing of the property, and I never knew that.
Wow. Interesting, though.
And people don't know that. What amazes me is how often I've been in this business. I've gotten in touch with families that have funds that are decades old that were up from a buyout of something, a foreclosure for something that happens. And people like they have no idea. These literally I've had to show them yeah, here's your funds, here's what exists. I'm not asking you for any money. I would like to help you get paid. I'll ask you for a finder's fee. And people have no idea that this exists, and literally there's tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, if you look at just state unclaimed funds, there's billions of dollars in every single state, let alone you've got mortgage overages, you've got tax overages, you've got bankruptcy overages, and then there's additional funds. Like I hear there's HUD overages. I hear there's so many different avenues of getting into this business that it's just there's literally billions of dollars out there that people have that they don't know they have, that's sitting at a bank or the state or somewhere.
Right. Absolutely.
One thing I know when it comes to mortgage funds that always tends to shock people is, I'm sure you could elaborate on this, Dave, is they only actually send one notice to the owner of the unclaimed property, to the funds, and then past that point it goes straight to the state. Can you maybe elaborate on how shocking that is?
Absolutely. So, and I see this time and time again. You're talking about a little 3x5 postcard that looks like junk mail. And someone's just lost their house. The last thing they're going to be doing is they're probably not even living at the house. They're probably living in their friend's or parents' basement or something. The last thing they're going to do is look at a little postcard and say, oh, I have funds from the bank that they're telling me. I mean, they don't even get that mail. So they move out. They don't know. And there's people on top of it. Some people have an attorney and they're working with the attorney. And those people know, and that's good. But you have people that have lost a property. They've lost everything they have, and they're not looking at these little postcards, so they never see this, and they go on, and then the trustee or the bank, we call them the trustee, they've got these funds, and they don't know. And most states have rules and regulations, but some of these states, like Utah, I've been able to go in and see that some of these funds just sit in the courthouses and they never get touched, and they make them impossible to find. Like one of the courts I was watching someone one time go in Utah, they went in this tab called General, then they had to go into 2 or 3 other tabs from there. So they don't identify them as surplus funds because they want them to be hard to find. And rightfully so in some instances where you get some people, and these are predators, they get in and they try to take them all and give the former owner like very little. and I'm against that. I think a healthy finder's fee of 30% is very fair, unless you're talking very little, then you might want to go 50-50 or something. But yeah, these just sit in the courts. Same with tax overages. They just sit at the local counties, and people don't know they have them. And that's where I've done most of my deals have been tax overages. Most of them have been in Florida, and I've had a lot of success in working with the counties there. And I've also tapped into mortgage surplus and even state overages as well. You've been marketing surplus funds for a long time, and you've been able to see a lot of clients be successful. What would you say the common denominator in our successful students, what would they all have in common?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a couple things. I think the first thing that I've noticed is persistence, because surplus funds is a business model, and really every business is like this, but you have to have some persistence and some consistency. And so if you're coming into this business model expecting to make money on the first phone call, which, listen, is possible, but the reality is it's like, if you want to make consistent money, you got to be making the phone calls consistently, right? And we always used to say, one of the biggest keys is putting time in your schedule. So having a time block every day where you make calls, and I think you used to use the example of like, I would say I was going to make calls, and then my buddy would call me, and then we'd like go surfing or something. It's like, no, this is my time where I'm going to make calls. And once you do that, you start to take yourself a little bit more seriously. You start to take the business a little bit more seriously, and things start to work a little bit better. So that's number one. And then the other thing I think I've seen too is, understanding their goals and what it takes to get there. There's some people I talk to, and they're like, I want to make $4,000 a month, which is great, but they have the potential to make $10,000 a month or $20,000 a month, right? And then there's some people I talk to, they're like, I got to make $1 million in the next 25 days, right? And they've never even ran a business before, okay? So, there's nothing wrong with having huge goals or having really small goals, but my challenge for a lot of times as a coach, and I'm sure you see this as well, David, is taking people and saying, okay, in the next 30 to 60 days, what is a stretch goal, something that's possible, but at the same time, something that you're going to have to push for. It's not just going to be handed to you. And so I think the people that come in and have a lot of success, they understand what they're capable of. They understand how they can get there in the next 30, 60, 90 days or a year or whatever the goal is. And they're realistic about it, but at the same time, they stretch themselves a little bit and push themselves a little bit. So I don't know what you've seen, but those are the biggest things I've seen.
I would absolutely agree. I would say persistence. I always say, and I tell everyone this, you're going to get a little pushback in this business, and you do, but you get a lot of success. I've had people, I think about the firefighter in Northern California. He got $10,000 on his first deal. I think about Belinda, who broke up her time schedule, and she was calling morning and then again in the afternoon. I think about Dale, who's also had the same schedule, and he's hitting 6 figures a year. I think about Luke, who does very similar, who's also hit 6 figures a year. And we go on story after story about this. Something that you say that I couldn't agree with more, and I'll elaborate on this. I'm going to ask you first. Why would you say wholesaling is dead?
Well, I think, wholesaling is dead because number one is, when I got into real estate originally, wholesaling was the big thing. And that was like 7-8 years ago, when I first started learning about real estate. And in that time, it's only become more popular. There's only more people doing it, right? There's more people getting into the niche. And now at this point, wholesaling has become so overly competitive. I mean, I remember back when we were working together on some wholesaling stuff, like, you used to even tell me, dude, California's pretty competitive. Like, it was even tough then, right? For new beginners to get started in. And now fast forward 5-6 years, like, it's crazy nowadays. We have, and I'm not going to reveal who it is. I say this story sometimes, though. We have one of the coaches of one of the literally world or internet's biggest wholesaling programs is in our Surplus Fund Mastery program. And he's told me himself, he's like, dude, I don't even enjoy wholesaling anymore. Like, I'm happy for my students, I'm excited to coach them, but I don't personally like it because it's so competitive. You're offering to give people half of what they're actually, like their house is worth. It's like, hey, your house is worth $500,000. How about you take $250,000? It's just like, what? And it's just, it's not. And then on top of that, from a business standpoint, and you can elaborate on this. It's like, you get a deal, you get another contract, and you got a 90-day period or 45-day period or whatever it is. And in that time, you got to find a buyer, and people will just wait you out. They'll kind of be snakes in the grass and mess around with you, and it's just a crazy business model. So that's my opinion on it. But you said you want to elaborate, so.
Well, I could talk about this forever, which I promise you I won't. I don't want to bore the audience here, but I recently just had a deal brought to me in Fontana, California. It took me 7 weeks to get in and out. I had someone who contacted me. This guy was in deep trouble, trying to buy the house, couldn't close on it. totally lost, had never dealt with this, dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars in real estate, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and couldn't even close on this property. I helped him out. I actually got him a fee, got in and out of this deal within 7 weeks. And you have to know what you're doing in real estate. People want that, but here's what I noticed. First of all, I know how to flip a property, but literally the hours you put into a real estate transaction, I would much rather be doing surplus funds. Why is that? I'd rather be on the phone for 1 hour, getting deals, getting a contract out, and making $15,000 and doing that 2 times a month, 3 times a month, than driving out to a property, yelling at contractors, finding out something's delayed, finding out you're going to have an extra month's of payment or something, which happens all the time. But let's go back. That's actually a rehabber. Let's go back to the wholesaling. This was a wholesaler that brought me the deal. Guy was in total trouble, had no cash of his own, no real estate experience. When I first started this business, I had some really great people in my life that were trying to teach me wholesaling. And I would call someone, just like you said, I would call somebody with the property and I would say, okay, I would come in at 65% of value. So you have a house that's worth, let's just round off to 70, which I'd come in lower than that. So you have a house worth 500,000. I would call someone and say, hey, I'll give you 350 for your property. And the guy would just cuss me out, tell me off left and right. And these people that are teaching this, how many of them have done active wholesaling deals? How many of them have actually been involved here? So you're really setting something up that's it's disaster. But the few properties I was getting, like I had a property years ago, this is back in 2012, and I was trying to wholesale it, and everybody was, it was somebody I knew, and everyone was trying to shortchange me on this property, tell me why they needed to come in even $30,000-$40,000 lower. And 2 things I noticed: they were trying to either double end it, meaning wholesale it on top of me wholesaling it, and if I got anything at all, which I noticed with many properties, at that point I started flipping. I said, you know what, screw wholesaling. Although I have done some successful wholesaling deals, I've done probably about a dozen or so in my career, and I've done many flips. I've done a ton of flips on properties, and there's a lot of risks involved. And even like you hear people say OPM. You know what OPM stands for? Well, you come in and you use someone else's money, other people's money, if you don't know that acronym, okay? So you come in and you use someone else's money and you grab a real estate deal, and you've never done a real estate transaction before. I mean, I could write a book on real estate disasters. I could also write a book on success, but where I'm going here is you're coming in here, you don't know what you're doing, and you're trying to get a property under contract. You get so many people trying to screw you over. It's a very cutthroat business, and you have to really know what you're doing, and most people don't. And that's why I couldn't agree with you more when you say wholesaling's dead, and you came up with that phrase. And I know you've gotten some flack for that. I know people email, hey, I don't think wholesaling's dead. I don't think wholesaling's dead. Well, if you live way out in Timbuktu somewhere, you're way out somewhere, maybe. But when you live in a big city and work in the business we work, yeah, it is dead. I agree with you.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing about surplus funds is, with fix and flipping or rehabbing, and even with wholesaling, you're right, there's that OPM, you use other people's money. Well, surplus funds is, you DNM. You don't need money, okay? You don't have to show proof of funds. You don't have to show anything. You just make some phone calls, and you get in touch with the right people, and you convey yourself in a professional manner. And you can help people recover their money. You don't have to prove to them anything. You don't have to prove, hey, I have the money to do this. You don't have to go and get a hard money loan. None of that. You just say, hey, I can help you do this. This is what it's going to cost, 10%. I got the paperwork, fill it out, and we're good to go. So, and that's the way I look at surplus funds. It's like wholesaling is a super marketing intensive business, right? Like the best marketers that are in wholesaling, they get the deals, right? Because there's so many people competing. It's like the best marketing wins, and they're all doing the same thing, right? So the best marketing wins, and the cool thing about surplus funds is that it's also the best marketing wins, but because there's so less people, your marketing doesn't have to be that good, right? You just have to be decent at phone calls, right? You don't have to be like this crazy over the top, like, I don't know, people that spend, tens of thousands of dollars a month on direct mail campaigns just to get a couple, wholesale deals a month. Like, it's crazy. But anyways, but the cool thing about surplus funds that makes it, in my opinion, much better is once you get the deal under contract, you just basically hand it off, right? Whereas with wholesaling, once you get the deal under contract, you're only halfway through the transaction. Now you got to turn around and try to sell it, and that's where you run into even more issues of people trying to undercut you, and it's just craziness. So I think it's better. It's easier in my opinion. There's way less competition. It's way less work, and quite frankly, you're actually helping people. If someone ends up with $20,000 they didn't know about, and you want to charge them 10, 20, 30, even 40%, that's a great deal. Versus saying, hey man, you know, this house is worth 500, I'm gonna give you 300, 350, 250, 400 even. It's like, dude, you just cost me 100 grand. Like, that doesn't seem like it's helping someone, right? So anyways, just food for thought there. But should we start heading down? I think we should start heading down.
For sure.
Okay, sure.